Welcome to the 10th Annual Tech Home Builder Summit. We are thrilled to be back here for our second in-person event this year and are so grateful to have you as our guest this week. You may have heard that Tech Home Builder is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and we look forward to celebrating that milestone at this evening's connection reception with you all. This edition of the summit unites a group of 125 innovative builders alongside a diverse mix of 80 sponsoring companies. And while this group is a bit smaller than we intended when we set out producing the event, we're extremely proud of the high-caliber audience that we've brought together and are certain that you'll find peers who are serious about furthering tech adoption in new home construction. Over the next 48 hours, we encourage you to make meaningful connections to help you make tech a strategic asset. Sponsoring companies represent a wide variety of innovative products, from whole house air purifiers, plumbing fixtures, LED lighting, irrigation controls, in-wall smart switches, ERVs, skylights, smart locks. There's so much to cover. In general sessions, boardroom presentations, one-on-one meetings, and in network events, we encourage you to seek out the products, programs, and people who can help you with your goals for this event. I'd like to extend my gratitude once again for your participation and also to the sponsor of our opening session, LifeX. Let's roll the video.
Just another smart light? No, a LifeX smart light. Our hardware, firmware, and software are different. That's why our color's different. Color that's subtle, not saturated. Color that cleans. Color that only cameras can see. And color that's all shades of white.
This is called a spectrum.
We've got color that moves and morphs. Yeah, it's fire. Color that helps you fall asleep. And helps you wake. And stay awake. Color that looks home when you're away. Color that blows up your play. Color that makes you say,
it's a vibe, lots of fun.
I love it.
Well, all right. Thank you to LifeX. I'm going to invite my panelists to come up. I'm Joe Loudner. I have started a new group with AE Ventures called Tech Home Advisors. You may have seen an email from us about that, and I'd love if I've sponsored pretty much every, when I was with a manufacturer, every Tech Home Builder event since it started up until about 2018, so maybe I've met some of you there, but I hope to meet the rest of you during this week. So today we're going to talk about tech in the all-electric home. I had the good fortune to work with this group and learned a lot myself. I hope you guys find some nuggets in here too. As far as, just to get started, how many folks are pretty engaged or have put out homes all electric, no gas to the property? Anyone out there? How many out there who are, it's on their radar? Like you're thinking about doing it and okay, all right. So, yeah.
Can I add to that? How many of you are from the state of Washington? State of Washington already having to do that, right? It's by code, almost there. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jacob. And since we're a little more of a small, intimate group, please fire off some questions. We'll open up some time at the end, but if anyone has any questions about any of the topics we go through, raise your hand, let's get started. So we're going to kick in. If I have this. Okay, so overview, I don't think we have to go through the details. We're going to talk about why, impact, what makes up the electric home. We have a couple builders with us that'll talk about example developments, perceptions, challenges, how to overcome, and open up some questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and I'm going to start down on the end with my friend Kevin.
Awesome, thanks. Kevin Clark, I'm the region sales manager for Rheem. I'm the water heating division. So a lot of what I bring to the table is I work with utilities and regulatory bodies to mainly recommend high efficiency water heating products. So kind of connect through the wholesale and retail channels in the marketplace to make sure they're educated on what's out there and how to promote and sell heat pump water heaters.
Excellent. Nick?
Yeah, and Kevin's the guy I call when I need information on heat pump water heaters. He's done a lot to drive it, especially in my home state of California, where I'm an energy consultant. So I help builders and architects design more energy efficient buildings and handle their energy code compliance, which we call Title 24 in California. And before that, I ran a stucco company for 14 years. So I've been around this industry a long time, about 10 years now in energy consulting. So if you're here at Tech Home Builder, I think you're looking for new ways to differentiate yourself, and I think that's what this panel is all about.
Excellent. Jacob?
Good afternoon. Jacob Atella, Vice President of Innovation and Sustainability at KB Home, where we focus very much on energy efficiency, but also 3 other pillars: water efficiency, smart systems and smart homes, and healthy home or wellness in the home. So when we talk about an all-electric home, it kind of combines several of these elements together, and we're embracing that, and I'd love to share some of that with you all.
Excellent. And we have one person who's remote, Ryan. Can we get him up on the screen? Ryan, say hello. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Lush. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at S2A Modular. We are obviously a modular builder. We are very focused on green building, all the sustainabilities, the health, the wellness, everything that kind of falls under that umbrella of what you might call green building. That is our major focus. And we do everything from ADAs, our accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and small homes, tiny homes, developments, communities. We can do quite a bit of different stuff. It's just a simple change in the line of our manufacturing site, and then just implementing everything that's green building, everything we can do, and constantly looking at everything that can be done.
Okay. All right, Ryan, thanks for joining in remotely. So to kick off, we're going to first go through why the all-electric home, what are some of the drivers. I'm going to ask Nick to kick that off, and then we'll get some insights from the other panelists.
Happy to. Yeah, I think it starts with simplifying your building process. How many of you are looking to add a third utility? Yeah. So by going all electric, you can eliminate the need to hook up those meters and trench and all those things, and we know there's delays that come in there from time to time. And I'm here to tell you, you can do this at lower cost, but to do so, you can't start at the driveway. There's a lot of savings in getting the gas to that driveway that can pay for these small upgrades in costs for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. So you need to draw a larger circle maybe than you usually do around what you're analyzing on cost. Health, I think, is the biggest missed opportunity in home building from my perspective to sell new homes and differentiate them from the used homes across the valley that you're competing with, because you have techniques that they don't have. You have MERV 13 filtration on all your ducted returns, which is now code in California. You have enhanced ventilation systems open to you. You have better building envelopes. You have air sealing. You have the ability to now no longer burn gas inside your house, which I've heard put as a rather caveman approach to heating things. And I think today we can think of it that way, because the burning of gas produces NOx and other unwanted toxins that persist around your house, and it directly is linked to respiratory illness, especially asthma, which we all know we have a problem with nationwide. So the ability to sell that house with improved health outcomes, improved performance if you're working in a home office, which many of your buyers are going to be, I think is the biggest missed opportunity. And in California, of course, we're required to build these homes with solar panels already. Makes sense to run more of those systems off electricity. And by pairing that solar system with a battery system, we can now offer that homeowner resiliency to ride out the planned power shutoffs that we're dealing with all of our utilities, even natural disasters. Those homes are going to come back better than a mixed fuel house would. You saw the propane tanks exploding all over the place in the horrific videos in Paradise. You know, it makes sense to get those off. Not to mention, I see improved energy code compliance, safer cooking surfaces with electric and induction cooktops. And I haven't even brought up the climate-minded buyers yet, who I think we'd all agree are at least 10% of the pie, maybe 25% depending on your region, and this ought to be a slam dunk to sell them an all-electric home.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Jacob.
First of all, thank you for that. I'd like to say we do have 3 utilities in every home. Would like to, especially that for us being here in the Tech Home Summit. Fiber optics, the 3rd utility, we need it. It's a must. We'd like to reduce the 3 and make them just 2, right? That's what you're talking about. And I totally agree with that. Think about this. If you're just looking at the one portion of where the current administration is going is towards decarbonization. So from a perspective of if you want to be ready for the next code, if you want to be ready for the new incentives that will be there, and I always call Kevin and say, where are our incentives for the heat pump water heaters?
It's nice to be the money man, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to kind of know how to build your roadmap for these things, clearly the all-electric, I think, is one you have to consider.
Jacob, how about aligning with your corporate goals of being a green company, and how does that tie into this, and how do you leverage that in your marketing?
Yeah, as a publicly traded home builder, investors and the investor appetite for ESG, environmental social governance investments is growing. And to that extent, KB Home, as well as many of the other public home builders, are very much interested in aligning with a sustainable future so that we can continue to be valid investment for the new capital, the green capital that's out there. So that's another one to consider, and we focus on it tremendously. Our plans going forward are even currently, let me just state, last year, 27% of our home deliveries were all electric. That was actually 2019. 2020, we had 32% of all our deliveries all electric, and we hope to continue to increase it going forward.
Great. Hey, Ryan, if you could just touch quickly on what were some of the drivers to anchor green and energy or all-electric homes around the S2A Modular brand?
I would say, originally everybody on the panel so far has touched on it, but, it's pretty obvious. California, it's Title 24 and everything that's gone on there. And you see what's happening federally with FERC orders and everything to do with energy. It's no secret. This is absolutely where we need to go, and this is where everybody should be going. That was really, happened, years ago. It's finally we're starting to get to a place where I believe it was Nick that, had said, it is affordable now, and it makes a whole lot of sense, and it really accelerates the ROI. So I think a lot of that to do, again, with, federal stuff that's coming out with FERC orders and a lot of the local stuff, the writing's on the wall that we better jump on the ship here, because if we're not, we're going to get left in the dust. It's a no-brainer that this is where everything's going.
Great.
One of the other things that I wanted to touch on is obviously, with all these things happening and everything with Title 24 and how California is, and we're going across the nation with factories. But I would let everybody here, if we can, for those that don't know, we have a massive water problem too. And talking about repurposing water, And things like Lake Mead, out here in the West Coast, that takes care of 40 million people and 7 states, 2 countries, and it's the lowest it's ever been. I have a city right next to me that just got mandated June 1st, 55 gallons per day per household.
Wow.
That's not a lot of water.
Great.
I can use that in 1 shower.
All right, Ryan, that's a lot to consider as well. So it's a nice segue to the cost and impact, or impact to cost and schedule. So Nick, walk us through a little bit of the costs that you will incur switching to electric, and then let's talk a little bit about the savings that you can get and how does that impact the builder's budget.
Yeah, and I defer to Jacob on cost because he's the one negotiating with the contractors, but from what studies show, and this is what I was hinting about earlier with drawing the line larger than the driveway, not running that gas infrastructure to each lot can save $6,000 a house on single family project. Multifamily is probably a larger number than that. And then that ignores the gas infrastructure inside the house, getting it to all the appliances, which your subs probably are building into their bids right now, but you guys know how to get the most out of a sub and say, well, how much will you lower your bid if you don't have to run gas to the dryer? If you don't have to run an exhaust duct from the dryer outside because we're speccing a heat pump dryer that doesn't require it. So there's a lot of drilling down opportunity to save when you go all electric that I think builders miss when they analyze costs the way they always have.
So there's the savings, and then is it cost more money to load up an all-electric house?
I do see slight upgrades in cost for the all-electric systems.
Yeah,
Okay.
so some of the equipment does cost more, especially if you want to go all the way up to induction cooktops compared to the electric cooktops. They're going to cost a little bit more. The same with the heat pump water heater versus a good efficient gas tankless water heater. There are some costs, but Kevin would tell us that it's sort of when you think about a few other things that you have to do, it kind of balances out.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's always, obviously we talked about trades quite a bit, and when you're putting in a gas appliance, there's going to be venting that's going to have to be required, and then as Nick mentioned, you have to bring that gas line to the appliance as well. So I mean, if you look at overall installation costs, they're pretty comparable, and then when energy code for new construction really steps in, like here in Washington, you get twice the benefit of putting a heat pump water heater in as opposed to a gas tankless. In California, for a NEA Tier 4 rated product, you're getting twice the EDR benefit putting in a heat pump water heater over condensing gas tankless. So there's definitely gives and takes in costs and benefits for everything.
Great, thanks. So let's walk through where the costs are for operating a house, and let's talk about the specific elements that you'll put into the house. Nick, you want to kick us off with go through the pie chart there?
Sure, and I'm most familiar with California utility rate structures, but when I model a house all electric and mixed fuel, usually the biggest usage is heating and cooling, as you show on that bar chart, followed closely by water heating. Although in multifamily, quite often water heating can be the larger chunk. But when I model the transition from running that house with the gas tankless and a gas furnace to now a heat pump water heater and a heat pump, even if it's just a run-of-the-mill heat pump, similar operating costs. And gas prices are forecast to rise twice the rate as electricity over the next 20 years in California. So, you got that to think about too. But when you switch to a more advanced ductless mini-split, ducted mini-split heat pump, that's where I can see $1,000 a year in savings in California. And some of the utilities have advantageous rate plans you can elect as soon as you have that heat pump, as soon as you switch to electric heating, like SCE's time of use prime. So there's savings out there from my experience.
And Kevin, walk us through what is a heat pump water heater? What does it do? Why is it unique?
It's kind of magical because we're talking about efficiencies over 100%. So I think that's why it's a very tough concept for consumers to learn. In fact, we were just talking to our Energy Star partner meeting, and they did some surveys, and consumers really have a hard time grasping how can something be over 100% efficient. Or heat pump water heaters where we have a 400% efficient product out there. So for every dollar you're putting in, you're getting $4 worth of hot water, which again is sometimes a tough concept to grasp. But in essence, it's basically just moving heat from the air and putting it into the water. So that process of moving heat, not creating heat, allows it to be up to 400% efficient.
And the clothes dryers, is that same technology, same concept? How does that work?
Yeah, my gas dryer went on the fritz and I put in a heat pump dryer. It's 110 volts, it's stacked on top of my washer, and it eliminates that crinkle tin duct that you always crush in the back of your dryer. So I think a lot of builders will find places for these because they don't need access to an exterior wall with a heat pump dryer. It's just taking the moist air in the drum and condensing it down into water and pumping it down the drain. So it's a really beautiful technology. Also gentler on our clothes. We find much less lint on the filter at the end of the load. Slightly longer times and slightly higher costs.
So with all the elements going into the house that are now running off of electric, what do you do? Is there a impact to the load you have to bring to the house, Jacob? Is there then you're combining your solar and your battery and time of day. What's the math in there?
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, whether it's gas or electric, you gotta, as a person looking to offset all the energy of the home, regardless if it's which kind of fuel it is. You're converting the kilowatt hours and the gas to BTUs, and that's what we used to say. That's now we need to offset that with solar and become net zero. Yes, there is more. Your electric load is more, so more of us are looking at 200 amp and maybe even beyond 200 amp load centers. But again, you offset that in California where it's required to have solar. A lot of that is offset by that solar. And when you also combine it with storage, you end up storing some of the kilowatt hours that you would have sold to the utility at a very low rate, stored it for the evening when the utility is going to charge you a high rate. So it's that kind of arbitrage that makes money for the customers. There are also there's a lot of appetite for utilities considering your battery as a distributed asset for them to take control of all of it or part of it, whatever the customer allows them to, for some money back to the customer. So interesting times that we're in because I think at the end of the day, the customer with an all-electric home can win financially.
Great, thanks. Ryan, I'm going to come back to you in a minute when we talk about your approach to getting close to net zero in a couple of slides. But first, I'm going to jump over to the Sundance at Park Circle community and have Jacob talk a little bit about that recent announcement, the partners, and what your goals are and what's happening there.
Sure. Just a bit of orientation. This community is in the back country of San Diego County. It's in an area that's a high wind zone. And if you have heard, when there is high wind in California these days, there is a potential for fire or a potential for the local utilities to say, I don't want to get sued for starting a fire. I'm going to do a public safety power shutoff. And in Northern Cal, with PG&E, these things lasted 4 or 5 days. Of course, Texas had its own thing, but from forces of nature. So when we were planning this project, two forces worked. worked us towards doing an all-electric home. Number one, this high wind zone. So we thought we would do a home, all-electric home with good amount of solar and a battery storage as an option. And I'll extend on that in a second. And the second is the incentives that are available in that community, in that area and utility district. The third, perhaps, element is that Schneider Electric is a partner. We exclusively use Schneider Electric Square D load centers, and they were working with us, collaborating on a new smart energy center they have. And I encourage all of you as builders to partner with your suppliers and kind of see how you can give them feedback on their new innovations. At the same time, also, test it, try it in some communities. And that's what we did here. We brought their load center rather than one bay. Usually load centers take one bay. This load center takes 2 bays, stud bays. And what's nice about it is, and you can see it in some of the slides, it has in it what would have been required by the local, by the state commission, energy commission, as a sub-panel for backup, future backup with batteries. Now it's all in one box, okay? And the portion that would have been for life essential load during a power shutoff, getting the juice from the battery, is all in there. And in the very, very near future, you're going to be able to, the customer is going to be able to shift that load from their phone, from, say, circuit A, that's the fridge in the kitchen, to perhaps another circuit that's charging the phones for half an hour or whatever. So these kind of new technologies are making it more appealing for a community like this. This load center also has a plug to immediately plug your generator in it. If they don't have a battery and they have a generator, you plug it in there and you distribute to the house. So very interesting thing. That's why we featured it, and we went all electric there, and we also feature a Tesla Powerwall in there. It's an option, but I can tell you it's been a 70% take rate from the customers. Wow. On that.
Yeah, I split my time between the Bay Area up north of the Golden Gate Bridge in Boston, and I've got the fires that take us down with those preventative power outages, and then you got hurricanes on the East Coast knocking power. So resiliency is a big driver for this, and that seems to be growing. The need for that's growing across the country with everything that's happening out there. Great. Ryan, you still with us?
Still with you.
Tell us about S2A Modular Homes. What do you got in those homes? Tell us about your net zero program. How's it going?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, we're really always shooting for net positive and hoping we land on net zero. But everybody's bringing up great points. The sub panels are really, the critical loads and really being smart, and the technologies that are available right now. I would say to anyone that's out there that isn't super familiar, I would say really do your homework on the panels that are out there. Do your homework on all of the storage solutions. There's plenty of vendors out there, and some do a great job at certain things, and some things you're going to put together just need to be a little deeper look. You need to lift the hood and look a little deeper under there, and really concept out and really engineer what needs to be done, because a lot of times, not just builders, but even just energy experts are out there. It's a lot more expensive to retro. So when you're doing it new, take advantage of the SGIPs, the self-generated incentive programs, and look at the sub panels and really look at each battery solution that's out there, because some have a lot higher output. Some of them have a lot better storage. And even like you're saying, when we're eliminating gas, That's a lot fewer openings on the roof, so you can actually even put a little bit more solar on an all-electric home than you might think you're able to do, and having to go around and stuff. So, just really holistically, I'd say, everybody that's out there, that's really how we look at it. And I always tell people it's a thumbprint, it's a fingerprint. There is not one solution. You can't judge your energy by the square footage of a home. That's like the worst thing to do. So you go, okay, well, what do you do with a 1,200 square foot home or a 2,000 square foot home? Who knows? How many people are in the house? What is their usage? What kind of devices do they have? That's the stuff that, we're pretty uber focused on, and everything we're doing, even to our communities where we can microgrid and share. Just takes a lot of really just, getting into the weeds and really look at it. There's not one turnkey solution out there that's the best thing out there, and you really got to do a little homework, and maybe, if you need the help, bring some people in that really understand it. That's really our big focus. That's what we're doing, along with, organic building materials, and just constantly looking at everything else that can be done. It never stops. Technology. As soon as you think you got it mastered, there's going to be a new product out. Better keep your thumb on the pulse, because it's constantly changing and just getting better and better and more affordable. So it's real important to just keep doing that homework and don't rest on laurels.
Is there, we didn't really touch on this, but smart home technology that can be used to manage electric consumption, lights, shades to deal with passive heating when you don't want it? How does that play into managing everything in the house and helping drive towards that, net zero or net positive? Any experience there?
AI.
Well, starting with your panel, yeah. Ryan,
Ryan, what were you going to say? AI?
Sorry, I was just going to say that the AIs that are coming out, this is not a scare tactic, everybody, but AIs are getting really, really, really smart. And, you think about some of these devices that are out there, and some of these algorithms and things that are available now. It's not future stuff. They're available right now. And it's a little creepy how smart they are, to be quite honest. I mean, some of our genius people in the world are dancing around 130, 140 IQ, and you got AI devices that are over a 5,000 IQ. They learn all the habits. Those are really going to be the driving force.
Okay.
AIs, algorithms, let them do what they want. Let's just don't make them too smart.
Okay.
Don't give them too much control. They'll take us over.
And Jacob, your panel has some smart elements that drive some of this too.
Yeah, it does. So a couple of things. First of all, I just want to echo what Ryan was talking about in terms of technology continues to change. That's what this summit and the annual cycle of summits are all about. I come here to really, you cannot sit out technology. You got to stay in it and continue to progress with it. Think about the thermostat. The thermostat is the new load shifting, if you think about energy, it's the new load shifting device. The grid is getting overloaded, and they do need to shift loads, and that's where the thermostat comes in. But also, I'm pointing to Kevin, because the heat pump water heaters that you're creating have a port for the communications with the utility, so that they can maybe preheat the water before you need to shave the load on the grid.
Yeah, that's correct. So, for the folks up here in the Northwest, you're probably already familiar that beginning next year, all electric water heaters have to have what they call a CTA 2045 connection. Luckily, they're branding that to be EcoPort, so I don't have to say CTA 2045 anymore. But, again, any electric water heater you're installing has to have this, basically a utility port to go in and participate in demand response programs here in this state. Again, in California, we get a little extra credit in the EDR for it. But this is really where, the utility space is going in to people's homes, because, as we know, places like California, which is a very, gas using state. About 90% of water heaters in the state are natural gas, and they're moving to all electric by 2045. Many states have very similar goals in their decarbonization roadmaps, so they're going through the same efforts. And realistically, a water heater can be used as thermal storage, like a battery. So you can soak up those renewables, when the sun is shining or when the wind is blowing, and then you can turn it off when everyone gets home and turns on their HVAC system. The Midwest has had basic timers on their water heaters in the rural electric co-ops for about 40 years. So, they've shut their water heater off from 3 to 8 every single day. Places like the Northwest and California are now taking a look at, hey, we can actually load up these water heaters and then shut them off. So they're taking it another step forward.
Sure. I've been doing some research on electric vehicles. People pre-wiring for EVs out there? Yeah? Did you read about the new Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck? Do you know what the amp draw is on their charger? It's 80 amps. And they also promoted the ability for the battery in the vehicle to power the house in an outage for 4 hours. And so now you've got the truck that's drawing, you've got a bidirectional EV charger, you've got time of day electric, solar, loading up a battery, maybe sometimes the battery charges the car. So I think the smarts between those systems is something that's going to evolve over time as all this stuff starts to connect. So Nick, you had a client that you talked about, City Ventures. Can you talk a little bit about their program, what they're doing with electric homes?
Yeah, this is a Southern California townhome community that they built all electric. City Ventures is doing a lot all electric right now. I'd add Meritage to that list. They did one in Irvine. Both of these communities, successful, high-velocity projects that sold out during COVID with all-electric designs, one with solar, one without. But these high-volume home builders have done the research, and they've come to find there's a value proposition here in all-electric homes that's sound. And I think that's the key takeaway.
Okay. What are the drivers geographically that make it more affordable or more necessary to go down this path? I mean, California is one animal. Texas, Florida, what are the key drivers that push folks to go all electric?
In Texas, Austin and San Antonio, also Florida, Orlando, Tampa areas where KB Home builds, traditionally most communities have been all electric for probably 20-some years, maybe longer. So that's been the tradition because there wasn't a very strong gas utility in the area. So that's one way of falling into all electric, is that there's just no alternative, right? And we've seen markets very happy with that. You come to California and there is some nervousness about all electric because of the cooking. There is this term, gas is a lifestyle fuel. And they mean by that the fireplaces, fire rings outside, cooking, outdoor cooking, maybe even the spa, that sort of thing. But also it's the cooking inside, cooking with gas. We've all heard that. But I think that's shifting. And in fact, I think you have a slide on, are we on that slide now?
Perfect segue, kept us right on schedule.
All right. Yeah, so there is resistance to, I don't want to leave gas cooking, right? But then when people try the induction cooking, you're blown away by it. It's a fantastic technology, very easy, faster to cook with, much more energy efficient. And builders, we have a role here to play. And I think we're working together on, you're filming, or you're going to be talking for Southern California Edison at one of our communities that's all electric to kind of educate on electric. So
In Santa Ana, also Southern California, right? And I think you all are getting market research that gas cooking is preferred by your home buyers. And I think studies like this one that Sacramento did debunk that. They show it's a matter of not being familiar. And that's what we're trying to do with this video series for our local utility and we'll broadcast probably several minutes from the cooking station because it's so critical. But you know, those of you football fans, you saw Frigidaire ran an ad during the NFL playoffs last year for their induction cooking range. This is becoming mainstream. IKEA stocks these things and features them in the center of their stores. They have a slide-in range for $1,100. So I think if you sell it based on safety of your family with the little kid reaching up on the edge of the induction cooktop, that's the way to get to people, even more so maybe than the indoor air quality argument that I hold dear as an energy nerd. So yeah, I think it's perception that a builder has to take a leap
I was
of
guilty
faith
of that. I do most of the cooking in our family, and I was always used to that little coil electric stove, and it was a miserable way to cook. In my place in Boston, I actually ran some gas to the second floor. It's a 3-unit condo, and my in-laws, who have the unit below us, put the induction cooker in there. And when we started this, I went down there and used it and was really embarrassed that I spent the $1,800 to get gas to the second floor. So we talked about costs, other perceptions, cost to the builders. I'll take a question. Does anybody have any specific questions about the cost part to you and for the panel here on that make you nervous from thinking you're going to overrun your budget, or everyone okay at this point? All right. Utility cost to the owner. What's the total cost of ownership? Are people coming in thinking of everything's electric, if in an area where rates are high, that's going to cost more to live in the house? The utility bills, how does that work?
I think that's the popular perception.
And what's reality?
And
Well,
the
again,
reality
it's
is
what
that
you grew up with, right? So, you know,
Don't leave the light on.
if you've ever had a standard electric water heater and you see that energy guide tag on the outside of it, it's going to be over $400 a year. Whereas, you know, the gas water heater, you know, their standard atmospheric gas is going to be about $300 a year. Your tankless is about $200 a year. And then if you look at a heat pump water heater, which again is, you know, really only been out in the market for the last 11 years or so, those have about $110 a year. So again, you know, something that consumers generally don't consider because they're only doing water heater replacements every 10 to 15 years. They may have not seen or learned about this technology since the last time they had an emergency replacement.
Yeah, and I think the trades are an obstacle here too, because they're going to tell their builder clients over and over again, your buyers are going to pay more for that electric system. And my modeling shows it's just not the case. And this is a huge 8,760 hour time of use rate spreadsheet that I'm using to calculate these people's expected utility costs. And a big piece of it is our building envelopes are so much better now than they were when this public perception was formed 20 or 30 years ago, that the cost to heat and cool these homes is affordable. The cost to do the water heating with the heat pump water heaters is affordable.
Okay. Ryan, quick question for you. So what do you find is, how do you market the benefits of the all-electric home, from the health to the savings to the environment? What do you find is attracting buyers to come check out what you guys are offering?
I think the customers are just getting a lot smarter. The education incline is obviously there, as the panel's saying. That I wouldn't disagree with anything that was said, but I do feel like, you know, the more we are engaging, and you know, we run a couple of webinars and every week, and it's that education incline that is really starting to drive it. I think people are just getting more aware. So when we look at it, it's really holistic. I don't see any one piece besides, like Nick brought up too, and I agree with you, Nick, that, you know, the heating and air, that's that's really that big cost. And I mean, most people that want to just go solar in their existing home is because, you know, their electric bill, and they're like, you know, especially in Southern California, my electric bill is $850 a month because I got to cool my house down or I'm going to be miserable. So as they start to get educated, all of it comes into play, but it really is a holistic approach. I think all of them are warranted. The air quality indoors, the advanced enclosures. I think when they see the big picture, and if you explain it well, it's just a light bulb that goes off, and customers get it. They get it a lot more than they did a few years ago. I was retroing houses for energy 7, 8, 9 years ago, and it was just expensive, and people just didn't get it. Today, it's a totally different climate. I think it's just all about presenting well and showing them the benefits and making sure they understand it.
Got it. Okay.
That's a big help. Education and climate.
Thanks. And Kevin, heat pumps. The belief that heat pumps don't work in cold climates.
So on the water heating side, if you look at you know, really the centers of the country that are really adopting heat pump water heaters, it's up here in the Northwest and it's in the Northeast. You know, Maine is probably the most transformed heat pump water heater market out there. They sell 10,000 of those a year. So, you know, probably the biggest market is, you know, one of the smallest states, you know, by population for sure. So, you know, again, if you're in a cooler environment, you typically have more water heating going on, which means that there's more potential savings for the homeowner throughout the year to heat water. So yeah, that's really kind of a bad perception. You know, maybe some of it lean towards some of the older heat pump HVAC systems out there that maybe could not keep up in a cold climate. But, you know, really the new models, especially in the HVAC world, you know, for cold climate heat pumps are really performing well. Anytime there's been a cold snap over the last few years with cold climate heat pumps, you've had nothing but really good reviews on results for those.
Yeah, they work down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cold temperature model's down to -15, so really
Okay.
should be able to handle our climate.
And so one other thing is like you got an outdoor grill that you want to hardwire into some gas, or you got the fire pit. I can see those two things being pushbacks. Is it okay to put some propane in there and give someone a little fire pit and outdoor grill? You're not gonna go to jail over it, right? So
Yeah.
okay.
No, absolutely. I had a builder ready to go all electric, and that's the reason he didn't, is outdoor fire pits and heaters. So, you know, that, to me, do those propane, do the house all electric is the right answer.
Okay. All right. So I'll open it up to any questions. If you have a number at your table, you have to ask a question. Anyone? All right. Yeah.
Life expectancy of the water heaters. What's the life expectancy? Or is it still like a 6 or 7 years for a hot water?
So the manufacturers that sell a lot of water heaters, there is a 10-year warranty on them. So you know, that's one of the NEA guidelines, is to have that 10-year warranty. Obviously, if it's 10-year warranty, it's designed to last longer than that, especially if you have, you know, good water conditions like you do up here in the Northwest.
Is there? I'm sure there's nothing preventing anybody, but before you went to an all-electric home and you shifted to a heat pump water heater, there's got to be some benefits just there by itself.
Obviously, the big one is going to be energy savings. There is some dehumidification benefits as well, a little bit of cooling. So I mean, there was probably a lot of concerns when these were first hitting the market, especially in cooler environments, that it was going to rob the heating load. Typically, you don't put water heaters in freezing conditions, so they tend to either be in basements or in the living space up in colder climates. But you know, really, a lot of organizations have studied it to death, worried about the heating load in cool environments. They found that it doesn't have a drastic impact on the envelope of the house as long as you don't put it next to the thermostat. Your southern utilities really wanted the cooling benefit inside the house, so they put them in there, studied it to death. They found out that it doesn't have a drastic impact on the envelope of the house. Very much like your refrigerator that puts heat out, you know, by extracting it from the box. You don't really account for the heat that's putting out. You don't really account for the cool air that the heat pump water heater is producing.
I have a question for Kevin, if
Sure.
that's okay.
Absolutely.
So Kevin, sometimes I hear about heat pump water heaters advice that you got to upsize them a little bit. Talk a little bit about that and why is that necessary and why, how could it be advantageous?
So you definitely want to upsize when possible. Heat pump water heaters, they're also called hybrid electric water heaters because they have two methods of heat. The primary source of recovery is going to be that heat pump, but it happens slowly. It's a 4,200 BTU compressor, so you think about you're getting 10 to 15 gallons per hour. When there's a heavy draw of hot water, if it's not keeping up, it can also engage a 4,500 watt element. Again, your compressor's running, up to maybe 600% efficient. That element is running a little bit under 100% efficient. So you want to really not have that element kick on very often. So having extra storage will allow the heat pump to do most of the recovery.
And because of that, you also maybe upsize the insulation around it. Do you or not? I mean, because the diameter is also a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's, we spray foam insulation inside that cavity. So it does have a pretty heavy R value for the insulation for the heat pump water heater. It's, I think maybe a 8-degree loss within a day. So not too much standby loss there, especially when you're considering, when that compressor is running, it's running 300 to 600% efficiency.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, you can think about these water heaters as an energy storage device.
Yeah. So actually, I have a plug-in. We're developing a 120 volt model specifically for the California market that needs to do gas to electric conversion. So it reduces a lot of the panel issues that come with that conversion. So I have one in my home in Vegas, and now again it's Vegas, and incoming water temperature is pretty high, and the ambient temperature is very high right now. And for a family of 5, I'm recovering water at about 1 kilowatt hour a day. So my utility rates there are about 10.5 cents. So I'm spending 10.5 cents a day to heat water here in the summer.
Is there any other costs or support issues that builders need to know about if they go in this direction?
Whole house surge protection.
Okay. And what are you protecting?
You're protecting all the current in the house.
Okay.
All the current in the house. You're buying expensive equipment. Yep. It's good to have whole house.
And so it's just because you've got more electric equipment, and it doesn't mean it's any more susceptible. It's just if you have poor power, protect the devices behind it.
Right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Does a recirculating pump work any differently with a heat pump system? And are there units that already have recirculating in conjunction with a heat pump unit?
They're not integrated. Recirc systems are great for water efficiency. They're not so great for energy efficiency. So again, if you have a recirc system that's on a timer, extended timer, if it's just running all day long, you're trying to, in essence, hydronically heat your house with 4,200 BTUs. We all know that's not going to work. That's when that element is going to kick on, and really you're going to lose a lot of efficiency if your recirc pump is not on an on-demand system. That's code in a lot of areas. California doesn't allow timer-based systems in new construction any longer. So I would imagine some other areas are also going to land on on-demand switches for recirc systems.
But you're okay with that on-demand recirc with a heat pump water heater? Yeah. I tell people to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, one other thing. Earlier I said that I always check in with Kevin where there are incentives or rebates from utilities. These are our rights as builders. Take advantage of them. They're designed, Nick consults with utilities, and the term there is market transformation. They need to pay for these things to help us transform the market. There is a cost to change, and they're trying to level some of that. But it's on us to look and see where there are these incentives and take advantage of them. I hope you're all taking advantage of them. At SMUD, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, if you have an all-electric home, the builder is getting $4,000 incentive. That pays for a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of,
So do your research.
Yeah, do your research.
Code, incentives, sustainability, health.
Yes.
A lot of reasons to take a look at this. All right. Well, that about wraps up the time we have for this session. I want to thank Kevin and Nick and Jacob and Ryan. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, one more.
One more.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely.
Hey there, I just had a quick question. It was kind of a two-part one. One of the things that was stated earlier was the cost of energy, the cost of water potentially going up. I heard something like twice. The second thing is, out here on the West Coast, we're building a lot of three-story product, and those research, that's really a big deal. You have some major customer service issues, and want to just kind of talk a little bit about how the heat pumps, what you suggest, kind of marrying that with, and how expensive is it to use these heat pump systems if you're going to be circulating at long distances? Like, unfortunately, we're in that situation. Other urban environments where we have to go vertical.
Again, sizing that system is going to be important. That way the heat pump has the primary, recovery source, right? So if your recirc system is kicking on that element, you need to upsize the tank, for the affordability for the customer. Again, no matter what, even in areas like California that have very high electric rates, heat pump water heaters generally pencil out well for the consumer, again, because you're drawing off of an appliance that's 400% efficient. But yes, gas rates, in areas are going to become more expensive as state and federal policies push more towards carbon cost. You'll see gas appliances or utility rates go up on the natural gas side.
All right. Well, you'll find these folks around this week. And I've guessed in closing, I want to thank you all for the time that you've educated me and helped put this together. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate what you've put together.
Hey, Joe, if I could say one more thing, just in parting.
Sure.
I think a lot, some people may be hearing this and it may seem a little overwhelming to move in this direction. It really isn't. And I would just say that one thing that served us really well is really work with your vendors more as partners and rely on their knowledge and their experience and their passion. And it'll really take a lot of things off your plate when you find some people you can trust that really know what they're doing. It's going to make the process of moving this way, for us at least, it's made it a lot easier. So just wanted to kind of throw that out and just a little 2 cents on our end.
Well, thanks, Ryan. And I hope you all get time during this few days together to meet some of those partners and start that relationship.